Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're talking about a massive, truly life-changing theme: how to reclaim your agency, your joy, and your freedom when you just feel completely and utterly stuck. We're going to be pulling from some incredible insights today, specifically the teachings of Alan Cohen from his absolute classic book, The Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore. We're also blending in the highly personal, real-world experiences of writer Kathy Jordan and backing it all up with the foundational wisdom of 12-step recovery programs. Seriously, if you've ever felt like your circumstances are completely dictating your happiness, you're gonna want to stick around for this. So I want to start by asking you a really direct question. Are you living a human tragedy or a soul journey? When life hits you hard, and let's be real, it hits all of us, how do you frame it? Do you see yourself as the victim of this chaotic, unfair universe, starring in your very own tragedy? Or do you look at those massive roadblocks and see a soul journey, a curriculum that's actually designed specifically for your personal growth? How you answer that question changes absolutely everything. And to understand why making that perspective shift is so incredibly hard, imagine this. Imagine a society that has lived on a giant floating raft on a massive lake for generations. They fish, they weave bamboo to keep the raft afloat, and over time, they completely forget that solid ground even exists. They literally forget there's a whole world out there. This is a super powerful allegory from 12-step recovery literature, and it perfectly describes the trap of isolation. When we go through prolonged trauma or systemic stress or just deep disconnection, we adapt to the raft. We forget our fundamental human need for community, for solid ground, and for joy. We just keep weaving the bamboo, convinced that the struggle is all there is. But listen, we aren't meant to just survive on a raft. Alan Cohen puts it so beautifully. He says, there is no real security in what is no longer meaningful. There is more security in the adventurous and exciting, for in movement there is life, and in change there is power. If you're clinging to a stagnant life just because it's familiar, you aren't safe. You're just stuck. To find that solid ground, we have to actually embrace movement and change. Section 1, Meeting the Dragon, Changing Your Personal Narrative. Okay, so how do we actually do that, right? How do we confront the darkest, most stagnant parts of our lives? Let's look at a real-world example from writer Kathy Jordan. Back in March of 1998, Kathy's life essentially imploded. She faced a devastating job loss, she was navigating a messy divorce, and she had just bought a house for herself and her 2 young boys based on a salary that she suddenly didn't have anymore. She was isolated, drowning in debilitating anxiety, and fully believed she was living a human tragedy. She felt completely fractured, and she thought that because all these terrible things were happening to her, she must inherently be a bad person. She was stuck on that raft, completely unable to see the shore. But here is what's so fascinating. Sitting in her kitchen in the middle of this total crisis, Kathy picked up Alan Cohen's book, The Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And it triggered what we can call the soul journey pivot. She realized 3 absolutely vital things. First, we are not our stories or our failures. Second, and this is a big one, if we have the power to attract such intense, destructive forces into our lives, we must have the exact equal capacity to attract good. And third, we always have a choice in how we view the things that happen to us. Her actual circumstances didn't magically resolve that day, but her perspective did. She stepped out of the tragedy and right into the journey. The whole point here is captured perfectly by Alan Cohen. He says, you change the past when you change the way you see it. You obviously can't change the hard facts of what happened, but you completely control the narrative. The meaning you assign to your past is exactly what dictates the reality of your future. Section 2. Heaven, Hell, and Spoons, the power of perspective. To really grasp this, consider the famous parable of the long spoons that Cohen talks about. Imagine a guy taking a tour of the inner realms. First, he's shown hell. It's a room full of starving, miserable people sitting around this incredible feast. But the spoons they're given are longer than their arms, so they literally can't get the food into their own mouths. It's just endless, agonizing frustration. Then the guide takes him over to heaven. And the guy is shocked because it is the exact same room, the exact same feast, and the exact same insanely long spoons. The only difference? The people in heaven are happy and well-fed. Why? Because they figured out how to use the long spoons to feed each other. The environment is identical. The only difference between suffering and joy is simply how we interact with our community. Which brings us to this profound thought from Cohen: love is hell and fear is hell. Where you place your attention is where you live. The people in hell were entirely focused on their own fear and their own lack. The people in heaven turned their attention outward toward connection and love. So I really urge you to look at your own life right now. Where is your attention currently placed? Section 3. The Law of Attraction. Actionable steps for daily life. Now, shifting from fear to love is a beautiful philosophy, but how do we actually pull that off on a random Tuesday when we're completely stressed out? Well, Kathy Jourdain developed a super grounded 5-step approach to what people often call the law of attraction, because she learned the hard way that you can't just sit on a meditation cushion and wait for miracles to drop into your lap. You've got to participate. Step 1 is positive self-talk, literally lowering your body's stress hormones by just speaking kindly to yourself. Step 2, set intention and act. You need to know what you want, but then you actually have to move your feet in that direction. Step 3 is maintain singular focus. Basically, stop worrying about what everyone else is doing. Mind your own business and focus on your own destiny. Step 4 is cultivate appreciation and gratitude for the people who are actively supporting you. And finally, step 5 is examine limiting beliefs, which we really need to dig into for a second. But before we do, I want to double click on step 2 with this amazing piece of advice from Cohen. Do not wait until the conditions are perfect to begin. Beginning makes the conditions perfect. Honestly, so many of us are trapped in waiting mode, right? Waiting for the right time, the right amount of money in the bank, the perfect mood. But Cohen is telling us that the very act of beginning is the magic that actually creates the right conditions. Okay, let's look at that 5th step, examining limiting beliefs. Are you unconsciously trapped in a false dichotomy? Kathy points out that society is constantly feeding us these either-or narratives. You can be happy or you can be rich. You can have a great career or an amazing family. And we internalize this stuff. We start believing that life is just a series of painful trade-offs. So we unconsciously block abundance because we're terrified we'll lose our spirituality or our friends or our happiness. We have to identify these silent, unarticulated limits if we want to stop them from running the show. Section 4. Unlearning your old limits, the 12-step connection. Identifying those hidden limits is really what deep recovery is all about. Think about the imagery often found in 12-step literature regarding childhood. Tousled-haired kids playing, a smiling golden retriever, a sky just full of sailboats. It's this beautiful picture of living fully in the present moment, totally free of time. And that perfectly illustrates the ultimate goal of the 12 steps. It's not just about stopping a bad habit. It's about getting off that isolated raft we talked about earlier. It's about returning to a state of fearless, fun-loving innocence and finding that deep, genuine connection with the world around you. And that brings us to what I truly believe is the core message of this entire explainer. Cohen summarizes it brilliantly. Personal growth is not a matter of learning new information, but of unlearning old limits. I love that so much. You don't need to add anything to yourself to be worthy or to be happy. You just need to strip away the false narratives, the fear, the ridiculous stories that tell you aren't enough. You are literally just unlearning the raft. And when you actually do that work, you reach what we can call the ultimate promises. If you synthesize Cohen's teachings with that 12-step vision, the result isn't just a life that's, okay. The promise is a lived, daily experience of true contentment. You find genuine release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination fires up with totally new possibilities. Life takes on a profound new meaning, and you finally discover that suffering was never the point at all. Joy is your highest lesson. I really want you to let this sink in. Cohen says it is not selfish to be happy. It is your highest purpose. Your joy is the greatest contribution you can make to life on the planet. For anyone out there who feels guilty for seeking their own healing or for just wanting a better life, let this validate you. A heart at peace with its owner blesses everyone it touches. Your joy isn't greedy. It's a literal gift to the world. Which leaves us with one final, pretty massive question to ponder. What limits are you willing to unlearn today to finally unveil your own magnificence? The dragon of fear and stagnation doesn't have to live in your house anymore. You have the power to change your perspective, pick up your long spoon, and step off that raft. It's your soul journey. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and I really hope this sparks the beginning of perfect conditions for you.